Hello and welcome everyone, I am Madals, producing some exclusive content for ESET UK Masters right now because we are getting awfully close to the grand finals for a part of that £10,000 prize pool, and as a result of that we do have the majority of our finalists. Yes, there are some more people who can get a spot through the Bring Your Own Computer event at Insomnia 48, but through the online events, there is already a good chunk of solid talent ready to bring all of the pain to the UK and to I-48. So, what I'm going to be doing this week, or over the coming days at least, is looking at each one of these players. I will be casting a couple of their games, taking a look at their playstyle, just helping you, the viewer, to get to know them a little bit better, so you can really decide, if you haven't already, who you are hoping to cheer for to take the #1 spot at the event. So, let me introduce the two players we've got in this game, one of which you will recognise from the second invitational qualifier. It is the blue Protoss player in the lower left. For Team Axiom, it is Crank. Up in the top right, his opponent in this game is going to be the red Terran. It is Dragon. Now Dragon is going for a gas first opening, meanwhile Crank getting down that gateway. But let's talk a little bit about Crank. He is our finalist. He qualified in the second Invitational Cup, so that was online, and he did very, very well for himself. He went 2-0 against Team Liquid's Ret. He went 2-1 against Todd. And finally, to get his spot in the final, he went 3-0 against Mao's Esports Hero Marine, another finalist for the series. So, he is definitely someone that we need to watch going into the finals. He's 23 years old, as I said when I introduced him. He plays for Team Axiom, and he was their first ever player, of course, after getting sponsored personally by Total Biscuit in order to go to MLG, where he did very well for himself. He was one of the founding members of the team, and therefore I'm sure that there was a lot of hype for him. So many Axiom fans out there, so if you are an Axiom fan, do let us know in the comments section below. The map for this game is going to be Antigua Shipyard, and for the moment things are going about their normal business. We've got the 1 Rax, the 1 Gas and the 1 Factory coming down for Dragon. Meanwhile for Crank, he's got both of his gas up. He does have 4 workers in one of them. I'm hoping he's going to notice that. He's also got his Cyber Core coming out, and he's just scouting around. He's dropped a proxy pylon down at the bottom right base, ready for some quicker warp-ins. Definitely going to be starting to take map vision and map control. But Dragon, he's there. He's got that Factory coming out, and this is always going to be quite scary, as it could be a 1-1-1 play, which many Protoss players struggle with. For the moment though, Dragon just getting out that single Marine, gonna be watching the ramp. But look at this, Crank going for the proxy Stargate. Is it gonna be Oracles? It very well could be. Could it also be some Phoenix harassment? Yes, there's lots of different things that Crank could be throwing at his opponent right now, and all of them are very cool indeed. So while we wait to see what comes out, other than this Widow Mine for Dragon and the Stargate port, let me just say that if you are not yet doing so, make sure you follow the @ESET UK Masters Twitter account, just to make sure you stay up to date with the latest information about what's going on when the tournaments are happening, and a cool ton of giveaways and things like that. And also, make sure you stick in your diaries the 22nd to 25th of March, because that is when Insomnia 48 is running. That is when the ESET Grand Finals will be running, and that is where I will be casting along with a couple of other amazing people. So, make sure you tune in and check it all out. Now the Stargate support is down. The Stargate is happily getting a chrono boosted Oracle on its way through. The Watchtower in the center being held by the probe. Crank at the moment does have all of the map vision, but Marines getting pulled back. They're ready in order to snipe anything off. There is some dead space around Antigua you can try and come in at, but with the Marines there, that Oracle is going to have to be exceptionally careful. A second Oracle now in production, but the first one is not going to be patient, going straight over across the map, ready to go and deal some damage if it can. But with that Widow Mine there, it is always going to be very scary. If that Oracle goes over the Widow Mine, it's going to take a lot of damage. It will get killed in one shot. I do believe it's getting dangerously close, walking around now, and so close to that Widow Mine. It desperately does not want to trigger it, but I think, oh no, maybe just, oh Crank, you are skirting around the edge of death. That is so tense to watch. The second Oracle is nearly complete, but Crank, he's securing his expansion. That's good to see. He's getting a photon cannon up in the middle of the line just to make sure he's safe from drop tech, because he's scouted that it is a 1-1-1. But Dragon, he's expanding out of this. He's not all in by any means. He's getting a command center out there's a transition. He's also got that second Widow Mine there, so he is relatively well defended. These two Oracles, for the time being, just wandering around trying to find a little gap. A single Voidway now in production as well, so a big commitment to air units from the Korean Crank, but for Dragon, he is just going to be hoping that one of these Oracles strays a bit too far. They haven't done any damage yet, and now with the Viking out, they are going to be pushed all the way back. That Viking doing some nice damage. You can see that Oracles are pretty squishy. They don't have the most health in the world. Meanwhile, a dropship full of Marines does spot the pylon, does stop the Stargate, and will be taking that out before the Voidway goes down. The Oracle trying to engage the Marines as best it can, but one does go down. The Viking now chasing it off, and with that Stargate depowered, there's unfortunately a Voidway that is ever so near completion that will never ever be. And that, of course, for Crank is a bit problematic. He's getting up his robotics facility and a Twilight Council behind this, though. Still only on one gate. Warp Gate tech was started very late in order to get this Stargate out, and therefore, without Warp Gate and just that one gateway producing units ever so slowly, there's hardly anything out on the field at the moment for Crank. But Dragon, likewise, he's only got that one medevac full of units where a good majority of the Marines were taken out by the Oracles. The other Oracle is unfortunately going to its death. It's floating around very, very nicely. It's seriously skirting with death so closely. It sees the third command center, though, and there's some good scouting information there. These two players are definitely going for the economical builds now, transitioning out from their early aggression. Stargate will finally die in a couple of seconds. The Viking desperate to try and get a kill off on that Oracle. Will it be able to do it? Chasing it down. The Oracle very, very luckily managing to escape at the moment, but will inevitably die if it keeps stopping or turning too steeply. Unless, of course, that Viking stops chasing. And what is this, Crank? You're going for the Dark Shrine. This is brilliant. So, Observer coming out, DTs. We've got this Forge on its way, the second Forge, should I say, so double upgrades will be imminent. Stim, though, that's getting researched at the moment by Dragon. He's taken his natural, he's got his third command center nearly complete as well, so we'll be able to pump out those SCVs and mules ever so quickly. The third, fourth gas also on their way. And now for Crank, the Mothership Core, which we hadn't seen yet, just due to all of the gas being spent on trying to get that Stargate as soon as possible. The Observer diligently wandering across the map, wanting to get a little bit of a scout off, see what is happening in Dragon's base. Can he get a read on the different units that are going to be coming out? Can he get a good idea of what Dragon has planned for him? But all Dragon doing at the moment is sitting back, turtling up with the siege tank there, trying to make sure that he's in a very defensive position. For Crank, though, a proxy pylon en route. The Observer wandering in, going to read that actually there's two barracks there. There is going to be some tank production because of the tech lab on the factory, and also Stim most likely to be researching. The War Prism on its way out. The units moving across the map, just the Marines and the single Marauder in the medevac. The tank, the Widow Mines, they are the defensive force at the moment. They're making sure that any gateway pressure isn't going to be too successful, but without any detection, these DTs, or this DT should I say, is going to be able to come in, but a single missile turret is in construction, but I don't think it's going to be done in time, and that in itself is going to be very, very frustrating for Dragon, because in comes the DT going straight towards that mineral line. At the same time, though, we see that these Marines, the Marauders, trying to pick off the rock, but the DT now chipping away at everything. The missile turret may be up and running, but the scan is required because the DT cleverly running straight past it to stay out of detection range. But now it's down. That's one less mule that will never ever be. The medevac, the Marines and Marauders on their way back. 3 more DTs warped in, loading up into the War Prism, ready to drop. 2 going to go into the main base. There's 3 all going to go up into that main, hopefully going to be able to do a nice amount of damage. There isn't a missile turret up here at the moment, and that means that another scan... Oh, should I say, yes, there is a missile turret there in the middle line. If Crank is able to snipe that off, it would be very, very good. But with the detection, the Widow Mine knocks out that DT very quickly, but a cancel force on some production facilities. Straight away, the tech lab trying to get focused down, targeting things that will easily go down. A scan could hit everything, but just misses the second DT, and that means that still one slicing and swiping away. A second scan force, that is now 3 mules that will never ever occur, and to be honest, that is not too bad for Crank, although he is behind in supply at the moment. He has his third base on its way out, and he's really ramping up his production now. He's got Storm researching from that Templar archives. He's going to be starting to get some High Templar out. He's got that single Oracle there still, just checking around in his base, and Charge also coming down. So with some good Storms, with Charge there, it shouldn't be too bad. That DT desperately wanted to take out that missile turret, but still manages to run away, which isn't too bad for a DT when you get an army of that size jumping on top of you. As we see now though, Dragon floating down his third orbital command, so they're both going to be going up to 3 bases at a pretty similar time. Upgrade wise though, we see that 1-1 is complete for Crank, whereas 1-1 not even started yet for Dragon. 2-2 is going to be finished before Dragon likely even begins his first upgrades, and that in itself means that Crank can afford to be slightly behind in terms of supply and still trade quite well, just due to having such a more powerful army. But with the third base up, obviously the income is what really starts to matter in the later games, and Dragon is just ahead in the work account, 58 to 54 in favour of the Terran player. When you take into account mules as well, that is quite a nice little lead for him, but Crank no doubt going to be pumping out a lot more probes. He is getting out a lot more units. These additional gateways really helping him get a good number of units onto the field. He's catching up in terms of the supply. Dragon now transferring those SCVs. He's got a good siege line up, but the Observer seeing an awful lot for the time being for Crank. You can see that there's the tanks there, knows the missile turret. He's had a good scout out in the main and knows that there were those 3 orbital commands. Isn't aware yet that it's floated down there, but he can probably assume that it's going to be coming relatively quickly. So that is all fine. A single High Templar loaded up into that War Prism. Is it going to go and drop and try and get a little bit of damage off? Most likely it will. This third base could be in some problems, but there's a missile turret there ready to start attacking anything that tries to drop in. Any kind of Oracle harassment, which Crank opened with, is ready to get shut down. So what is Crank going to be able to do? He's walking through the middle of the map. That Oracle is not having any luck getting into the main base or anywhere else. Uses very quickly that lovely Revelation spell in order to give vision for Crank, and as we can see, this is good information for Crank. He sees exactly what is there for the time being and can decide that no, maybe I don't want to push into that for the moment. A scan coming off for Dragon here, sees that the army not really there, but does now spot the High Templar. That is really important in terms of a scout. A couple of storms coming off at this third base, did manage to get a couple of worker kills there, and the War Prism even gets away with its life for the moment. But a second missile tide means that that will not be occurring again, not on Dragon's watch. He is prepared to stop that. Upgrade wise, 2-2 is finished for Crank, 3-3 already on its way. The first upgrades, 1-1 weapons for both vehicles and infantry, only just now getting started for Dragon. So he is definitely a long way behind in terms of the upgrades, especially as Chrono Boost going off on those forges, just to make sure that Crank gets those 3-3 upgrades as soon as he can. And with the fourth base coming out with pylons absolutely everywhere around, he's in a good spot. He's moving towards the center of the map just as Dragon is moving forward. Taking that watchtower is really important. Does catch just on the edge of its vision that Dragon was moving forth, and now can try and get into a good position. If he engages when the tanks aren't sieged up, it will be a lot better for him. But there goes the scan trying to take it out. A good storm does hit the Zealots, charging forward, and storms are dealing a nice amount of damage to a lot of that infantry, but the tank siege up will force Crank back at the moment. Center of this map on Antigua, this high ground, so critical to hold. More storms are trying to hit Crank, just buying himself some time. The Zealots charging forwards have got to be careful with that tank line behind, and Crank, in my opinion, doing the right thing, pulling back, retreating, waiting for some more reinforcements so he can take this engagement a lot more comfortably. He doesn't want to engage into the siege line, and now we see him pushing forward with those Zealots, dealing a lot of damage, but Dragon still for the time being is going forward. He's trying to deal more damage, and well, as we can see, storms are hitting, the siege tanks are sieging, and well, the Marines and Marauders, they are pushing forward. So a Guardian Shield going down, more High Templar are out, a couple of Immortals desperately coming, 3-3 upgrades about to complete, some more storms are going down. Crank is really pinned up against his own base. This is a difficult spot for him to be in. Storms trying to hit on those Hellbats, on those Marines and Marauders, but the tanks right at the back not able to get involved yet. Another good storm by Crank. He is whittling down that army's health ever so quickly, ever so carefully. Photon Overcharge going down on the Nexus. It is taking a lot of damage. Meanwhile, though, we see that a couple of Zealots have walked in. They are chipping away back at Dragon's base. More storms are hitting, more tanks are shelling, and of course this counter push with just a few Zealots is doing an awful lot of damage for Crank behind this. He's killed 19 workers. He is going to be able to clean up this force, albeit very, very much by the skin of his teeth, but the Immortal desperately helping, dealing more damage, more tanks coming in. But now the Archon moving forward, trying to pick off those medevacs. The Zealots still running around in the third base, forcing it to lift and fly away. Another storm hits, and Crank is holding off so well. He's leveled out the supply count. These storms are just apparently never ending. And as we can see, Crank, he seems to be doing good. He's being forced back again with just that Archon, doing the absolute best he can. This game is oh so close, right now. And, well, with the Immortal dying, with that Photon Overcharge, desperately trying to do a bit more damage. Crank could very well lose this base. He's desperate to try and keep it with more storms going down. He picks off another Siege Tank, and with that Zealot Warp in, I think he's going to be able to force the Terran player back, at least for a brief lull in the push. But behind this is where the damage really came down. 20 workers have been killed by Krang. He's forced the Orbital Command down to the gold base, but he's taken a solid lead in terms of the worker count at 68 probes to just 49 SCVs. His 4th base is up and running. He's taking the 7th and 8th gas. The Zealots finally now gonna die, but the upgrade advantage, +1 infantry weapons and 1 vehicle upgrades compared to 3 Protoss ground upgrades. So Crank definitely ahead in terms of the upgrade advantage, and in a great spot, getting a shield upgrade as well, getting out some more Immortals. The tanks are starting to siege. That center gold base is such a massive target for the Protoss player. But is Crank going to go for it? Indeed he is. He's charging forward with those Zealots. The Archons desperate to start trying to take out those tanks. Storms are hitting on everything. 2 tanks go down. Another storm hits, another Archon morphing, and it looks like Crank is going to be able to push through. He came back after being down in supply. Such a brilliant play from the Axiom player right now. And he is storming down on those SCVs. Oh, so many are going to die, and this is just really hurting the income for Dragon, who's now under half the supply of his opponent. And with the Archons chipping away at that Orbital Command, with the Immortals doing some damage, there is the GG, and Crank was victorious. So we saw there the Crank is able to hold under even the toughest of pressure, the biggest of pushes. So I hope you did enjoy. Remember everyone, make sure that you check out at ESET UK Masters on Twitter, the ESET UK Masters YouTube account, and also ESETUKMasters.com for all the latest. And of course tune in live for the grand finals on the 22nd to 25th of March. Like this video, leave a cool comment, and subscribe to my YouTube because I've got more highlights from the finalists coming up. Thanks for watching. I'm Madals, and bye for now.